Okay, I want to talk about the idea that many times the writer does not start out to write a story. The writer starts out to write to discover something they don't know yet. And I have a couple of exercises to work with this idea. And the reason I bring this up is that for me, many times what happens is I get an idea and it's for a main character I don't really know and a situation that I don't really know, and from that starting point, that begins the journey, and it is a journey of finding out things, knowing things I didn't know, writing to create the things that I'd like to find out about that unknown location. I'll give you 3 scenarios for this exercise, and you can choose one. The first one, you are a very ordinary individual living in a town or city, someplace where there are roads and buildings, and you can create whatever character you're going to become through writing this story, only that at the beginning that character is very ordinary, unremarkable. So you start your story as your main character waking up and discovering that the house across the street has disappeared. That is the starting point. So you, the writer, you have yet to discover who this character really is and who this character is going to become, and exactly what the circumstances are. And as you write, have this very ordinary character experience not just people, but houses and buildings and other, could be a bridge or a shipping port, will just disappear from their hometown. And what do they do about it? Do they talk to people about it? If they try to bring it up, and your main character finds out that other people have no idea what your main character is talking about, and what eventually happens, does all of society disappear? So this is your starting off point, and it's up to you to just start writing. Don't figure it out ahead. I mean, if you have some ideas, fine, but write your way to the discovery. So when people talk about writing being a form of discovery, this is the situation. You write to find out for yourself, and through this process, that generates the story. So story generation is not always as simple as just thinking of a story. Sometimes the story has to be uncovered and has to be made up as you go along. Writing can be one of the most difficult and the most rewarding things to do. Difficult in the same way that climbing a mountain is difficult. And there are 2 modes to writing. There is the dreamer mode and the critic mode. And the critic mode, for the most part, everyone can share techniques and skills along the lines of refining their work and making it, better for the audience, so on and so forth. But the dreamer mode, that's very particular to the individual. Everyone has their own style, and it's difficult to talk about. It's difficult to explain. But my point here is that a story is not always so much as setting up the various stages of what happened. The creation of a story, to be the creator of a story, can be a lot more like you, the writer, going on a journey that you yourself have no idea where it's going to take you. And it's sort of like going into the wilderness, where you leave it to chance. You're going to find out. You have an inclination that it's something that will be rewarding to find, but you yourself don't yet know. From the movies I've watched and the books I've read, I strongly suspect that a lot of writers out there started out in this point of departure, where the unknown main character, where the writer assumes steps into the role of the unknown main character in a situation they themselves don't know. So you think of these amazing movies and stories and wondering, when the writer started out, did they even know how it would turn out, what would happen? Okay, here is the second jumping off point. You are a little mouse, only about that big, and you're starting out in a coffee can that is tipped over in an abandoned lot where there's this jungle of tall grass and trees looming way overhead, and you don't yet know who you are. As you write, you could turn out to be any you could be very human-like in mouse form, or you could be simply a mouse. I mean, it's really up to you to discover through the writing process. And it happens to be raining very hard at the beginning of this story. So that's the starting off point. That's where the story starts. And the exercise is to start, write down the scenario, and keep writing. Describe what happens next, and go out, find out what that world is like for that mouse, and who that mouse is, and let a story unfold. If you're going to start a new story in this way, it's also great that when you're halfway through, when you're a couple of chapters or a few pages into the story, then you can introduce some previously unknown, unpredicted danger to the scene, and that always throws a spin on it and adds a lot of energy to the story, and that's a really great thing to do a little bit later on, after you've had a chance to discover who that character is that you've assumed the personality of, and what are some of the mysteries of that place where they find themselves. As a side note, do you have your writing backed up? It only takes one crash to lose all that hard work. It could be only 10 kilobytes, but for you it could represent hours and days worth of work lost. So I use SugarSync, and it automatically syncs all my writing projects. If I work on it on my home PC, it's automatically updated to my laptop, and it's backed up on the cloud also. And also, if you want to get me amped to put out more of these tutorials, click the link below in the message click the SugarSync and sign up. If you sign up through that link, I get some extra storage, and that really gets me amped to make more of these writing tutorials. Oh, by the way, it's totally, you can sign up for the free SugarSync, so there's no money involved. Okay, here is my third proposed scenario, starting off point. So you are in a life-dominating environment. It could be a religious cult, it could be a company, it could be a country, it could be a ship. It's something where the main character whose personality you're assuming and are going to live through is born into, for this example, let's say a factory that it's impossible for them to leave. They can't really be an individual. They grew up serving this company, and their life and the life of the company are one and the same, and there's no privacy, and there's no there's no freedom of choice, and very, very, very limited understanding of the outside world. And the beginning of the story is when this ship, country, company, cult falls apart for some reason, goes bankrupt, starts to sink, you name it. For some reason, your main character is released from that life and is exodused from that environment and steps out into the unknown world, and it could be anything. I mean, you could have the character start out and it could seem like they're living in a place that has 19th century technology and they step into the world that has 22nd century technology, or it's up to you to find out. So the whole wide world is there for them to wander into and adapt to. That's the important thing. And they're going to need to totally give up their old way of thinking and think for themselves. Before they weren't allowed to think for themselves, now they're forced to think for themselves to survive. What will they discover? What's out there? How does the previously unknown world match up to the expectations, the propaganda that your main character knew the outside world to be before? How is it different? So that is the third scenario. As the second exercise, come up with your own starting off point. Come up with your own barely known main character and barely known new environment starting off point. And you can or you don't need to write a story from it. But the whole point is to really pay attention to the point of departure as a creative tool. From my own experience, I know that these mysterious points of departure are, like, for every story I've bothered to start to try to write, there are probably at least 100 of these points of departure that are just these ideas. I'm walking along and get an eye and recognize this as the seed, the germ of a new story. And as far as like the plot line and the finale and all of that about the story, I may never find out, but it's the DNA of the story. And I go ahead and write those down, and these starting off points, I may choose to use one in the future or not, and they are a wonderful way to become more creative and come up with more original content. So a writer is a critic. There are many tools out there to become a better critical thinker about your writing. And there are also many tools about becoming more creative, more original with your writing. And these exercises that I've offered today are a couple of them. If you come up with very inspiring points of departure and you want to share them with the other viewers, please leave them in a comment. It might be a good exercise for other viewers to try. If you have any questions, when I answer questions by making videos, they seem to be a lot more viewed. So I think that by reading your questions, I get a better idea about what kind of material people are searching for. And if you like the video, please take the time, hit the like button, subscribe, leave a comment. I hope you come up with great new ideas in your writing, and have a good day.